Samsy. Okay, guys, we got some story time with Trailbot, and we're just outside of Cayton Campground. And today's story, In the Avu Observatory, Part 2, an H.G. Wells classic short story. Now, in Part 1, we just met Woodhouse. He's the assistant astronomer, and he was just settling in for a night of observing the skies. So let's get moving with this thing. Then, with a sigh, he resigned himself to his watch upon the mysteries of space. All right, let me just take a second here and let's just talk about what we're doing here. We jumped in Trailbot and we getting out of the campground, and we're gonna head towards Telluride. So we got to go through Lizzard Head Pass, and I think we get just to the top of the hill just outside of Telluride, and that'll be it. So when you want to get into Telluride, you're going to have to get the next part of the story, because we're only going that far today. And if we don't get started, we'll never finish. So let's get going. There was no sound now in the observatory, and the lantern waned steadily. Outside, there was the occasional cry of some animal in alarm or pain, or calling to its mate, and the intermittent sounds of the Malay and the Dyak servants. Presently, one of the men began a queer chanting song, in which the others joined at intervals. After this, it would seem that they turned in for the night, for no further sound came from their direction, and the whispering stillness became more and more profound. The clockwork ticked steadily. The shrill hum of a mosquito explored the place and grew shriller in indignation at Woodhouse's ointment. Then the lantern went out, and all the observatory was black. Woodhouse shifted his position presently, when the slow movement of the telescope had carried it beyond the limits of his comfort. He was watching a little group of stars in the Milky Way, in one of which his chief had seen or fancied a remarkable color variability. It was not a part of the regular work for which the establishment existed, and for that reason perhaps Woodhouse was deeply interested. He must have forgotten things terrestrial. All his attention was concentrated upon the great blue circle of the telescope field, a circle powdered, so it seemed, with an innumerable multitude of stars, and all luminous against the blackness of its setting. As he watched, he seemed to himself to become incorporeal, as if he too were floating in the ether of space. Indefinitely remote was the faint red spot he was observing. Ooh, suddenly the stars were blotted out. A flash of blackness passed, and they were visible again. Queer, said Woodhouse. Must have been a bird. All right, let's just talk about this little drive here. Let's take a look. We'll see where we are. Oh yeah, we coming up on the Lizzard Head Pass. There's lots of hiking right from here. It's up there, you know. So when you go hiking, make sure you're, fairly experienced, or you're with some people and stuff. But definitely be cautious. And there's wild animals and the whole bit. It's just a beautiful area, and you can, if you got a vehicle that can handle it, and you like the cold, because like I say, you're at, geez, it's got to be 13,000 feet, and maybe I can't remember. We'll see the sign here in a little bit, but it's up there, and you can just drive off and park in the boonies right over there, and camp for 14 days. And there's a really nice spot just up here where everybody does just that. And they make a whole little village out of it. There's a little looks like an old cattle or horse corral kind of thing, and everybody just kind of parks around there. But very beautiful area. Oh yeah. All right, so we'll get past it here. Oh, I think this is the pass right here. I think this is the official, just up and around that little lefty there, and there'll be a sign and stuff and all the good stuff that you need. All right, let's get back to it here. Okay. Suddenly the stars were blotted out. A flash of blackness passed, and they were visible again. Queer, said Woodhouse. Must have been a bird. The thing happened again, and immediately after the great tube shivered as though it had been struck. Then the dome of the observatory resounded with a series of thundering blows. The stars seemed to sweep aside as the telescope, which had been unclamped, swung around and away from the slit of the roof. "Great Scott!" cried Woodhouse. "What's this?" Some huge, vague black shape, with a flapping something like a wing, seemed to be struggling in the aperture of the roof. In another moment the slit was clear again, and the luminous haze of the Milky Way shone warm and bright. The interior of the roof was perfectly black, and only a scraping sound marked the whereabouts of the unknown creature. Woodhouse had scrambled from the seat to his feet. He was trembling violently, and in a perspiration with the suddenness of the occurrence. Was the thing, whatever it was, inside or out? It was big. Whatever else might it be? Something shot across the skylight, and the telescope swayed. He started violently and put his arm up. It was in the observatory, then, with him. It was clinging to the roof, apparently. What the devil was it? Could it see him? He stood for a minute in a state of stupefaction. The beast, whatever it was, clawed at the interior of the dome, and then something flapped almost into his face, and he saw the momentary gleam of starlight on a skin like oiled leather. His water bottle was knocked off his little table with a smash. The sense of some strange bird creature hovering a few yards from his face in the darkness was indescribably, did I get that right? Indescribably unpleasant to Woodhouse. As his thought returned, he concluded that it must be some night bird or large bat. At any risk, he would see what it was, and pulling a match from his pocket, he tried to strike it on the telescope seat. There was a smoking streak of phosphorescent light. The match flared for a moment, and he saw a vast wing sweeping towards him, a gleam of gray-brown fur, and then he was struck in the face, and the match knocked out of his hand. The blow was aimed at his temple, and a claw tore sideways down his cheek. He reeled and fell, and he heard the extinguished lantern smash. Another blow followed as he fell. He was partly stunned. He felt his own warm blood stream out upon his face. Instinctively, he felt his eyes had been struck at, and, turning over on his face to save them, tried to crawl under the protection of the telescope. He was struck again upon the back, and he heard his jacket rip. And then the thing hit the roof of the observatory. He edged as far as he could between the wooden seat and the eyepiece of the instrument, and turned his body round so that it was chiefly his feet that were exposed. With these he could at least kick. He was still in a mystified state. The strange beast banged about in the darkness, and presently clung to the telescope, making it sway and the gear rattle. Once it flapped near him, and he kicked out madly, and felt a soft body with his feet. He was horribly scared now. It must be a big thing to swing the telescope like that. He saw for a moment the outline of a head, black against the starlight, with sharply pointed, upstanding ears and a crest between them. It seemed to him to be as big as a mastiff's. Then he began to bawl out as loudly as he could for help. At that, the thing came down upon him again, and it did so. His hand touched something beside him on the floor. He kicked out, and the next moment his ankle was gripped and held by a row of keen teeth. He yelled again and tried to free his leg by kicking with the other. Then he realized he had the broken water ball in his hand, and, snatching it, he struggled into a sitting position, and feeling in the darkness towards his foot, gripped a velvety ear like the ear of a big cat. He had seized the water bottle by its neck and brought it down with a shivering crash upon the head of the strange beast. He repeated the blow, and then stabbed and jabbed with the jagged end of it in the darkness where he judged the face might be. The small teeth relaxed their hold, and at once Woodhouse pulled his leg free and kicked hard. His kick, he felt the sickening feel of fur and bone give way under his boot. There was a terrible bite at his arm, and he struck over at it the face. As he judged, and he hit damp fur. There was a pause, and then he heard the sound of claws and the dragging of a heavy body away from him over the observatory floor. There was silence, broken only by his own sobbing breathing, and the sound like licking. Everything was black except the parallelogram of the blue sky with the luminous dust of stars, against which the end of the telescope now appeared to silhouette. He waited, as it seemed, an interminable time. Was the thing coming on again? He felt in his trouser pocket for some matches and found one remaining. He tried to strike this, but the floor was wet, and it spat and went out. He cursed. He could not see the door was situated. He could not see where the door was situated. In his struggle, he had quite lost his bearings. The strange beast, disturbed by the splutter of the match, began to move again. "Time!" called Woodhouse, with a sudden gleam of mirth. But the thing was not coming at him again. He must have heard it. He thought with the broken bottle. He felt a dull pain in his ankle. Probably he was bleeding there. He wondered if it would support him if he tried to stand up. The night outside was very still. There was no sound of anyone moving. The sleepy fools had not heard those wings battering upon the dome, nor his shouts. It was no good wasting strength in shouting. The monster flapped its wings and startled him into a defensive attitude. He hit his elbow against the seat, and it fell over with a crash. He cursed this, and then he cursed the darkness. Suddenly, the oblong patch of starlight seemed to sway to and fro. Was he going to faint? It would never do to faint. He clenched his fists and set his teeth to hold himself together. Where had the door got to? It occurred to him he could get his bearings by the stars visible through the skylight. The patch of stars he saw was Sagittarius, and southeastward the door was north. Or was it north by west? He tried to think. If he could get to the door open, he might retreat. It might be the thing was wounded. The suspense was beastly. "Look here," he said. "If you don't come on, I shall come at you." Then the thing began clambering up the side of the observatory, and he saw its black outline gradually blot out the skylight. Was it in retreat? He forgot about the door and watched as the dome shifted and creaked. Somehow he did not feel very frightened or excited now. He felt a curious sinking sensation inside him. Ooh, maybe we just knock it off right there, eh? All right, guys, thanks for coming along. We'll see you next time. Oh, yeah, see, just over the hill would be Telluride. Samsey. Okay, you big old Rosie. You do your thing now.